In Kentucky's rolling hills, where the morning mist still clings to forgotten meadows, stand the decaying remnants of what was once Pleasant Hill, a Shaker settlement that, in 1834, vanished overnight. More than 300 people disappeared without a trace, leaving behind empty buildings and a silence so deep that locals still avoid the grounds after dark. For nearly 200 years, the state of Kentucky has kept the official files locked away, buried in archives few have dared to open. But newly uncovered testimony from an Ohio inspector reveals a truth so terrifying it shatters everything we believed about America's religious communities. What unfolded at Pleasant Hill was not simply a tragedy. It was 27 years of relentless terror, all hidden under the guise of sacred devotion. Before we dig into the grim secret authorities fought to bury, I need to ask something of you. This channel isn't for everyone. It's only for those willing to face the darkest shadows of American history. If you're among the few who seek out these hidden truths, subscribe, and tell me in the comments which state you're listening from. Now, let's turn back the clock and see how greed twisted a holy community into something far more sinister. What began in 1807 as a shining beacon of spiritual purity became one of Kentucky's most tightly guarded secrets, orchestrated by a family whose corruption was far worse than anyone could have imagined. It was 1807, and the Second Great Awakening was sweeping like wildfire across Kentucky. In this fever of religious revival, Pleasant Hill rose as a refuge for those committed to Shaker principles, celibacy, shared property, and separation from worldly corruption. Nestled in the fertile bluegrass region near Harrodsburg, it drew hundreds of converts willing to surrender all earthly possessions in exchange for the promise of spiritual perfection. At the center of this seemingly devout settlement was the Richardson family, their influence woven through every layer of daily life. Elder Samuel Richardson, tall, with piercing gray eyes and a voice that could command any gathering, had come from Ohio, claiming direct ordination from Mother Ann Lee's original followers. His spotless Shaker garb and encyclopedic grasp of theology convinced even the most doubtful visitors of his sincerity. His wife, Sister Martha Richardson, had publicly renounced their marriage to uphold Shaker celibacy, yet privately continued their union behind the closed doors of Samuel's expanded quarters. Martha possessed an uncanny ability to read people's fears and desires, a gift she used with devastating precision in shaping the community's social order. Her soft, serene manner concealed a calculating mind that rivals found both intimidating and magnetic. Their family roots spread deep into Pleasant Hill's structure. Eldest son, Brother Ezekiel Richardson, broad-shouldered and inheriting his father's commanding presence, oversaw the vast agricultural operations. He transformed Pleasant Hill's farms from subsistence plots into commercial powerhouses supplying markets across the Ohio River Valley. His younger brother, Brother Caleb Richardson, acted as the community's quiet but watchful enforcer, monitoring conversations and correspondence with the efficiency of a modern intelligence service. Sister Rebecca Richardson, Samuel and Martha's eldest daughter, oversaw the women's dormitories and the orientation of new converts. At 28, she had never married, instead channeling what many described as fierce maternal instincts into shaping the lives of female members. Her reputation for dismantling psychological defenses and rebuilding personalities in line with Richardson ideals was legendary among those who endured her spiritual counseling sessions. The youngest daughter, Sister Patience, managed Pleasant Hill's official records and correspondence. Barely 24, she possessed a rare gift for forgery, able to mimic any handwriting after only a few days of study. Her meticulous files formed a flawless paper trail, shielding the family's activities from prying eyes. Samuel's brother, Brother Jeremiah Richardson, controlled the community's profitable furniture workshops. A skilled craftsman from before the family's corruption took root, Jeremiah maintained the high quality that made Pleasant Hill furniture sought after across Kentucky and beyond. His shops employed nearly 50 members, an operation that appeared dignified but in truth functioned as forced labor. Brother Isaiah Richardson, Samuel's cousin, managed the lucrative seed business that supplied farms in 3 states. His monthly travels gave him perfect cover for activities that would have horrified his business associates. Known for his gentle nature and deep agricultural knowledge, Isaiah was welcomed on farms from Ohio to Tennessee. His true purpose, carefully hidden. Martha's sister, Sister Hannah Collins, commanded the kitchens and food distribution. This control over nutrition allowed her to subtly reward loyalty and punish dissent. Skilled in herbal remedies and their effects, she could alter a member's physical or emotional state with surgical precision. Even extended relatives had their roles. Samuel's elderly mother, Mother Sarah Richardson, served as the living symbol of Pleasant Hill's supposed holiness. Her presence gave Samuel's leadership an air of historic legitimacy. Frail in appearance, but sharp in mind, Sarah was the family's strategist, her decades of manipulation guiding their long-term plans. Brother Nathan Richardson, Samuel's youngest brother, handled Pleasant Hill's relationships with local authorities and nearby communities. His charm and apparent sincerity won the favor of Mercer County's Sheriff, William Morrison, convincing him the Shakers were model citizens, deserving protection. Nathan's regular donations to churches and civic groups bought goodwill that proved invaluable whenever outsiders asked to. Many questions. Outsiders who visited Pleasant Hill saw only the surface, immaculate buildings funded by honest profits, gardens so precise they looked like works of art, and a contented membership working from dawn to dusk. Nothing in this perfect tableau hinted at coercion or abuse, but behind closed doors, the Richardson family had built an elaborate network of surveillance and control. Every decision, no matter how small, required Richardson approval. No member could leave without a family escort, and even a brief trip to nearby Harrodsburg demanded a written explanation and strict supervision. In today's terms, Pleasant Hill was a textbook totalitarian system. Information flowed only from the top down. Dissent was detected early, and the community's isolation, physical and psychological, made rebellion seem not just dangerous, but unthinkable. New converts went through a 6th month indoctrination, overseen mainly by Rebecca and Martha. By the end, their former identities were erased, replaced with blind loyalty to the family's rule. Questioning the Richardsons was equated with questioning God. Daily life reinforced obedience at every turn. Members rose at 4:30 to the toll of Brother Caleb's bell, ate under Hannah's watchful supervision, and worked all day at tasks designed to prevent private talk or independent thought. Evening worship, led by Samuel, with family members in supporting roles, mixed genuine faith with subtle manipulation, deepening dependency and crushing critical thinking. The first crack in this perfect facade came in February 1812, when Brother Thomas Whitman, a respected, longtime member, began asking questions. Brother Thomas Whitman had arrived at Pleasant Hill in 1807, one of its earliest and most generous converts. A widower in his 50s, he had lost all his children to a cholera outbreak and sought comfort in the Shaker promise of a spiritual family and eternal purpose. He donated his thriving dry goods business and significant property holdings, providing much of the capital that allowed the Richardsons to establish their grand operations. For 5 years, Thomas embodied the perfect Shaker brother, tireless in the fields under Ezekiel's direction, a mentor to younger converts, and never one to challenge leadership. His transformation from wealthy merchant to humble servant impressed visitors and strengthened the community's reputation for authenticity. But Thomas's sharp business mind, honed by years of managing accounts, noticed details others missed. In his agricultural duties, he occasionally accessed operational records, and patterns began to trouble him. The seed business profits, Isaiah reported, didn't match the sales Thomas had observed on customer visits. The furniture shops claimed revenue was impossibly high for the amount of work being produced. Even the membership numbers didn't make sense when compared with his feed and supply ledgers. At the monthly community meeting, Thomas stood, weathered hands clutching carefully calculated figures, and spoke. "Brothers and sisters," he began, "I have prayed long and hard about concerns that weigh on my spirit. Our community has prospered greatly, yet I find contradictions in our records that I cannot ignore." A heavy silence fell over the hall. Richardson family members exchanged glances, brief, but loaded with meaning. Samuel's face was calm, hands folded, though those who knew him well saw the faint tightening around his eyes. Martha's smile remained serene, but her grip on her prayer book grew white-knuckled. Thomas pressed on. "The seed business, brother," Isaiah reported $800 in profits from Ohio last quarter. Yet, when I made those deliveries, my calculations showed nearly $1,200 in sales. Where has the missing money gone? Brother Caleb rose from his seat near the door, pretending to check the room's temperature, but subtly placing himself between Thomas and the exit. Sister Rebecca's gaze never left Thomas's face, reading every twitch and pause. Other family members shifted their positions, creating an almost invisible net of control. Furthermore, Thomas continued, "Our rolls list 400 members, but our food supplies suggest we feed barely 250. Brother Jeremiah claims 50 workers in the furniture shop, yet I count only 37. These numbers do not reconcile. As stewards of God's blessings, should we not demand accuracy in our accounts?" The response came not from Samuel, but from Mother Sarah Richardson. Her frail voice carried with surprising authority. "Brother Thomas," she said gently, yet with unmistakable warning, "your concerns reveal a mind still tethered to worldly thinking. Here, we trust that our leaders, guided by divine wisdom, handle such matters for our spiritual good. Perhaps you should spend time in prayer to overcome these doubts." Samuel nodded gravely, his tone warm but firm. "Brother Thomas, your devotion is unquestioned, but your mind may be clouded by memories of your former life. Sister Hannah, prepare him some of your special chamomile tea. Rest and reflection may restore clarity." The meeting continued, but something had shifted. Members avoided Thomas's eyes, burying themselves in prayer books. The Richardsons conducted business as usual, though an unspoken tension filled the room. That evening, Thomas was found dead in his bed by Sister Rebecca, who tearfully told the community he had passed peacefully in his sleep after confessing his sin of doubt during evening prayers. She claimed his last words were an apology for letting worldly concerns cloud his faith at the funeral. His death became a warning about the dangers of letting business interfere with spiritual obedience. Yet Sister Mary Caldwell, who cleaned the dormitories, noticed things she would never forget: the bitter almond smell in his room, despite open windows, the blue tint to his fingernails, and the faint foam at his mouth Rebecca had carefully wiped away. Mary watched in silence as Caleb collected Thomas's papers, the same figures that had sparked his questions, and burned them in the communal fireplace as part of a cleansing ceremony. Within hours, Martha was leading prayer circles where members confessed their own doubts, while Ezekiel kept them busy with endless work to prevent private conversations. Jeremiah told cautionary stories about those who challenged spiritual authority, and, in less than a month, Thomas Whitman's name vanished from records, his belongings redistributed, his work reassigned, as if he had never existed at all. Asterisk from plantations in the Deep South to sprawling industrial sites in the Midwest. This trafficking ring, masterminded chiefly by Brother Isaiah, during his seed business travels, became the most profitable arm of the Richardson empire. It also conveniently explained the unsettling disappearances that might otherwise have stirred outside suspicion. The method for selecting victims was as deliberate as it was chilling. Young members with rare talents but dangerously independent spirits were prime targets. So too were those whose family ties made their continued presence at Pleasant Hill an inconvenience. The buyers, often convinced they were acquiring indentured laborers rather than free individuals, unknowingly participated in a system designed to erase identities. Records suggest these transactions generated profits surpassing all other community industries combined, the very skills that made certain members valuable within Pleasant Hill literacy, craftsmanship, or agricultural expertise, became bargaining chips in a trade that thrived on secrecy. For each sale, the Richardson family not only secured income, but removed a potential source of dissent. Those who vanished were replaced in the official records with vague notes, called to the Lord's service elsewhere, relocated for missionary work, or departed with blessing. In truth, many were shipped under false contracts to faraway estates, never to return. For the Richardsons, this was more than business. It was a means of control. Within Pleasant Hill. Not everyone remained blind to what was happening. A few members began to quietly question why so many of the young and capable were vanishing without farewell. Whispers crept through the workshops and fields, carried in hurried conversations and guarded glances. But in this community, suspicion was a dangerous thing. Those who probed too deeply into the disappearances seemed to meet swift and final consequences. One elder, who had kept a private journal detailing names and dates of the missing, was found lifeless at the bottom of a ravine. His death ruled an accident during a solitary walk. Another woman, who dared to confront Isaiah in front of the council, was discovered hanging in her quarters before dawn. Her passing hastily declared a suicide brought on by spiritual unrest. These incidents were not isolated. The unspoken rule was clear. To ask questions was to invite ruin. And so, fear became the invisible fence that kept even the most troubled minds silent. The Richardsons understood that control was as much about perception as it was about force. Publicly, they preached unity, piety, and service. Privately, they ensured that those who threatened their enterprise were erased, either sold away or silenced forever. The few surviving letters from the brave who tried to escape suggest they knew they were being hunted, their every step shadowed by men loyal to the family. There was a brief moment when it seemed the outside world might pierce Pleasant Hill's carefully woven veil. A county sheriff, acting on a tip from a former member, arrived with questions about the sudden loss of so many able-bodied residents. His presence stirred unease among the Richardsons, but outwardly they met him with warm hospitality and meticulous records, led by Isaiah himself. The family escorted the sheriff through the community's tidy streets, bustling workshops, and thriving fields. Smiling faces, many of them coached in advance, greeted him at every turn. The ledgers he was shown contained no sign of wrongdoing, each missing name paired with a plausible explanation. From missionary assignments to arranged marriages in distant congregations, the sheriff left convinced he had encountered nothing more than a devout, self-sufficient people, admirable in their order and piety. Behind closed doors, the Richardsons celebrated another narrow escape, their confidence in their own invulnerability only growing. But that visit had a secondary effect. It taught them exactly how much they could hide in plain sight. From then on, every departure, every transfer, was accompanied by a carefully crafted paper trail and staged farewells for the benefit of anyone who might be watching. It was deception made into ritual, and it worked for years.